Good morning, legends and super legends. About ready to get ready to roll out of here. It's about 7:10. I'm leaving in 5 minutes. Paul's the only one I'm sure is coming, so we're going to do our usual long ride. I don't get to do much during the week other than some short indoor workouts because of scheduling issues and so forth. So the weekends we go long. Hopefully we'll be able to get some shots that we can pass on some teaching moments to you guys on the channel, or just take you along to share our ride with us. So I hope you get a chance to get out there, get some miles in. I'm gonna go ahead and I already got my patch kit in there. I always put my phone in the bag. I don't know how you guys do yours, but that's just to keep moisture out of the electronics. Because even if it doesn't rain, your perspiration, these jerseys are very pass through as far as the weight moisture. So you don't want to just stick your phone in the pocket. You want to put it in the bag. And I basically I'm going to put it in the bag with the food and put my patch kit here, leave the middle pocket open. That's where I keep the gimbal when we're not filming. And I'm taking the Colnago today. She's sitting over here, all ready to go. Taking my black helmet, of course. So I'm gonna go ahead and get ready. Legends, super legends. We're heading out here. Hook up Paul. It's a nice morning. It's a little cool. We got some rain on Thursday, and it brought in, I guess, a cool front came in. It was the day I did the yard. I'm glad I did that day because it rained really hard that night. I hate doing the grass when it's wet. It's just inefficient. And so it's very cool this morning. I think it's below 7. It's about like 66, 67. It says 19C. For us, that's unusual. Almost 7:20. Feels like we're in the 60s. Upper 60s here. That's what it feels like. Fahrenheit. Yeah, 66 is about 19C. 66 Fahrenheit. So for us, that's unusual. We get that late October if we're lucky. More like late November, December. So I sped it up here. Today's ride, we decided to just kind of focus on some drills, kind of keep things a little more interesting. You guys have seen us ride enough. So here, this section here, we decided to film just some drills on high cadence climbing. And I'm thinking that with these group rides, especially when it's Paul and I, we're going to start having some themes thrown in addition to the ride, things that people can work on.
The one on the bottom.
So those of you who wanted to see videos on climbing, this is an example here. People have asked for it in the past. I've always wondered how to do it, and now with Paul getting really adept at filming, I'm going to start doing some additional drills, different things that we can cover. So you see the hill coming up there. And if you look at my cadence, it's already in the upper 90s. So right here, this hill kicks in quickly. It gets to like 4%. It's like 4.5%, 5%. If you look at the overlay right now, it says 4%. It's more than 4%. And what I did is I put it in a moderate gear, probably 62 inches, like a 39-17, something like that. And that's what I'm spinning. And I'm just letting the cadence do what the hill allows me to do. So right now for this first climb, so we got several rollers coming up. So I'm kind of easing into it. So it's like low 90s to mid 90s is what I'm trying to maintain here. I want you to focus more on my form than anything. You can see, if you remember, my heart rate was like 130 when I started. It went up like 20 beats. We're going downhill here. It's not a very serious descent. With these rollers, you get a little dip. It says -2 there. I don't think it gets more than that. So all I did was upshifted a little bit. I'm still on the small chainring. I may have gone to the 16 or the 15, staying in the 39, and just kept my cadence up to where I'm still under control. I'm handling cadences that I can tolerate without rocking. And that's the same thing you want to do. So here it's going up again. And my cadence dropped. You can see from the 111 right now. So I downshifted to keep it up there. I want to wake up my legs. So you can see I'm in the triple digits. Same effort. Heart rate staying in the same zone. Zone 3. You don't need to kill yourself when you're practicing climbing. When it's time to go harder, you'll be able to. You want to train your neuromuscular system. So I don't really focus so much on heart rate. Focus on how you feel and how smooth you are. And you can see I'm carrying triple digit cadence. Down the road here kind of levels off a little bit. It says -0, but I think it's hard for this thing to keep up because it's up down. So yeah, we're back on another uphill here. This one's like maybe less than 3%. And I'm just keeping it in a gear. I'm keeping it in the gear that will keep my cadence above 100 for this drill. So you need to do cadences you can handle without bobbing up and down or bouncing all over the bike. It takes time to be able to handle high cadences. So you've got to train over a period of time to get there. There are specific drills you can do that will teach you how to tolerate that. So this is still a climb here. It says -0, but it's really not. It's under 1% up for the next probably half mile until we get to the light. And all I did was I found a gear that would allow me to keep my cadence above 100. Paul's not spinning. Paul's using a heavier, he's not spinning a faster cadence. He's using a slightly bigger gear. And he's focusing on filming. But you can see my torso is steady. My legs are just doing the work. So I come by, keeping my cadence up, about 108. So this kind of climbing, if you do that well, you don't want to stop. I really said to Paul here, I don't want to stop. That's what he's laughing at. I did not want to stop.
bike route sign these geniuses put up.
Yeah, well, guys, they go around the town and they put these signs up. Like that means a whole lot. You know, what do you do when you get on a road that doesn't have it? Do you stop using the road? Makes no sense. They don't do anything special. They just put up a sign that says bike route. There are no bike lanes per se. This road just has a wider shoulder, and they didn't do it for cyclists. They really did it for breakdown of automobiles. You know, it's really an afterthought. So it's kind of annoying to see that. Why bother? Just make the roads available for all traffic, to accommodate all traffic, including pedestrians. I mean, you can see we don't even have sidewalks. They don't want anybody walking. That's why most people in Houston are out of shape. They don't build pedestrian facilities. We're spreading out building areas, all these areas outside of the city, and they just don't accommodate people. So everybody's stuck in these cars. Every time I see that sign, I kind of scoff at it. It's a waste of money. It makes no sense. Anything other than a freeway should be available for cyclists. The freeway has minimum speeds of 45. We can't do that, and I wouldn't want to be on these things. The way these people drive anyway. So all the regular secondary roads should be available, which they are. So I don't see the point of putting up these bike route signs. I'm not sure who started that. Stop wasting the money. Spend the money on something else. Spend it on making the right lanes wider. So I decided here to show how to climb with strength, because earlier we showed high cadence climbing, and I went ahead and decided to do it out of the saddle. You can do it in the saddle too, but I wanted to just show that for those of you who want to practice climbing out of the saddle. So since you're going to be out of the saddle, you want to use a slightly heavier gear than you would normally use sitting, and it's a judgment call. You know, the conditions can dictate what you use. If you have wind in your face, you want to find a gear to wear, because you can't spin as fast as you can when you're seated. And since you're working on strength anyway, even if you were seated, you'd probably want to be 75 or up. But standing, you might not be able to hold 75 and up. You can, but I wanted to show with this drill just basically your form. You want to minimize the movement. That bike is moving on its own. I'm not doing that. I'm just pulling up. And my hands are not doing anything than countering the force of my legs. That's all it is. So you move, you pull up and down, the bike will move under you. That's normal. And then once the grade was over, I sat down. So you focus on the technique, and then you vary the gear. So most of the time when I stand, I can spin low 70s to mid 70s. And especially if you're doing it for a long time. Now, I don't do it as long as like Alberto Contador or anything like that. I like to do that just to change how I'm using my muscles. It's good to be able to do that. If you get on a switchback, you're going around a curve, you hit a steep section, it's good to be able to stand so you don't strain your back and you don't have to downshift too much. So after that exercise, I decided to focus here. This part of the video, we're going west. Right now we turn and we're going north, but we're going to turn left down there, which will take us west. If you watch the course down here, it lets you know our direction. Basically, we're heading north right now. You can see it says 359, 360, that's north. That's as north as you're going to go. And the wind's coming from the north. So right here, we're going straight into the teeth of the wind. We have a stiff northerly wind. That's why it's nice this morning. Very beautiful, fair day. And you can hear the wind. It's dumbed down a little bit because of the post-production and the software that I've used to reduce the wind noise, but you can still hear it. This light is kind of odd. It doesn't usually change for us, so we go right, and we're going to do a U-turn. I see that car coming. After that car, because they've got the green going that way, but it's not busy, so we're gonna do a U-turn. Then when we do a U-turn, now it decides to go yellow here, which it never does, because that road is a little road, doesn't favor it, so we just roll through. So at this point in this direction, we're going west. If you look at the course, it's got 267. The wind now is coming from our right, which is on the north. And when you got a crosswind that stiff, it's almost like it's blowing you sideways. You see the flags over there? And you see how the ripples in the flag are facing our side. That means that the wind is coming from the north and slightly in our face. That's why you see those wiggles in the wind. So we got a crosswind and then kind of a slight headwind. And with these fronts this time of year, they change. So right here, even though the wind's coming from my right, I'm staying as far to the right as possible. So if Paul decides to use the draft, he will just come on my left, because that's where the draft is. But he's filming here. He's trying to get a shot. So here we turn and we're going kind of south. More like a southwesterly direction, mostly south. So we got a bit of a tailwind on this little stretch. We're gonna head back west at the stop sign coming up. We're moving fast enough so the driver we passed over there ended up behind us. He didn't try to come around, which is smart. So right here, once again, I go as close as I can to the white line because the wind's coming from my right, and I want to keep the left side free if Paul decides to use the draft. Because from time to time, he'll get in the draft to take a break, and then he'll fall back where he has to work and take a shot and make a good shot for the video. So here, what I'm doing is, since we got so much wind coming from my right and in my face, I'm keeping my cadence kind of moderate to work on strength. So I'm in a good size gear, probably a 53, 17 or something like that, or a 19 thereabouts. And you can see my speed right now is saying 32, 33 kilometers. So between 20 to 22 in these conditions is what I think we did most of this ride. These trees kind of help block the wind a little bit, but you still feel it. And when it's very windy like this and blustery, what I do is I make sure I stay even smoother. I focus more on scraping the bottom of the pedal stroke, pulling back, kicking over. I don't worry about the downstroke so much. It takes care of itself. The reason I do that is I want to unweight the other leg. I don't want any leg carrying the other leg. So if you concentrate on scraping and pulling back and kicking over, when the other leg is going down, it is not going to be pushing the other leg. The other leg will be doing its share of the work. And you can do that, of course. Everything starts with fit. If your fit is right, both legs get equal share of the work. When your fit is off, your dominant leg ends up doing the work. Right here, I told Paul about this. The camera is set up to where the lens is off to one side. So when you turn it around, it's actually facing your chest as opposed to when it's forward. I left this in there so he can kind of see it. And I think in this situation, it probably would have been better. He was trying to film the cars behind, just to give a variety. I think probably using the right hand, because the lens ends up being on your right when you flip the camera back. Right now the lens is on the left because that's the way it is on the camera. They move the lens to the left. So when you turn the camera around, the lens is on your right. So it catches most of your body. So if you hold it in your right hand, then it will catch behind you. So we chatted about that, and I think he's going to adjust for that next time. But that was cool. I left that in there so he can kind of see it. He didn't hold it that long, so it's good. So right here, what we're doing is keeping this road, even though it says 0, it's like 0.7, 0.8. And so for some reason today, this road was busy. That's what Paul was moving the camera back to pick up these guys. They were behaving themselves. They were pretty patient. A lot of them moved over before coming around.
getting all these guys that want to pass close by on a video. They behaving though.
Yeah, Paul's talking about those drivers. A lot of times they want to pass in your lane, all that. I'm by the edge of the road just to give Paul room. This road is not a busy road. Ordinarily, if the wind was coming from the opposite side, I would probably be next to that dirt in the middle of the road. Right here, nothing's coming. We got the right of way. We roll through the four-way stop sign. On the roads that have, these are neighborhood roads. You can see the speed limit says 35. They're not major thoroughfares. So I don't mind taking up half of the lane out here. I mean, if it's super busy, yeah, sometimes we'll move over, but this is not a busy road. So, you know, most of the people in here, there's no industry down here. So I'm staying to the right because the wind is coming from the right and in our face. So that way you have a kind of an echelon. I'm in the same gear, but it gets a little harder on the grade here. The grade picks up. We're going more westerly here. This whole spot is a drag. The last 3 or 4 miles we've been going up a drag. And what I try to do is make sure I'm not bogged down. You can see my cadence is right around 80. 80s thereabout is really good for building your strength, because if you're climbing a mountain, that's about what I do when I climb a long climb. If I go to a place like Colorado where I'm climbing for 30 minutes or more, that's my cadence. I try to stay in the mid 80s to the low 90s. You know, and just comfort, because you can maintain that for so long. It just seems to be a natural rhythm for me anyway. I don't do a whole lot of spinning for very long periods. I can spin if I need to for some sections of the climb, but mostly this is how I prepare to be able to climb for long distances, using the wind and this slight grade, because we've got a lot of wind right now, and I treat it like I'm climbing. You can see my cadence is 75, same gear. But because this grade, right, it says 1%, it's probably over 1%. It just listed the integer. Right about here, it picks up. And at that stop sign, it picks up even more, because it's just a steep little bump right there. We got a lot of these bumps. We don't have the super, super long ones, but we got the ones that are kind of, they can break your legs. Nothing's coming. Let Paul know I checked. Right about here, it kind of levels off.
Go ahead, I'm filming.
I thought he might need a break, so he said he still wants to film, so I can continue. There's something going on. This is a school on the left. There's something going on here, so all the parents or whatever, they're parked on the side of the road. So I move over to give them room. The people are getting out of their cars. There's a car behind us right now, and he kind of knows to wait, so I don't want to park too close to these cars. These are off the road, and nobody's in there I could see in there. That's why I moved back over. Especially since there's a guy behind there. He's been patient, so. Okay, it looked like he turned in. See a car back there in the distance. At this point, we're going a little downhill here. So I pick up the speed. It's gonna level off. All these rollers. We're really fortunate in the part of Houston we live in. There are a lot of rollers. They're fortunate in terms of just getting you to be a strong cyclist. There are parts of Houston that's flat like a pancake, like the west side, and I think even east. And it just seemed to take longer to get really strong. When I used to compete, I used to drive out here to go and ride the hills. It just seemed to get you in shape quicker. I don't know what it does, but I guess it's the resistance. And so I'm really glad that I live out here right now, because I get in shape a lot quicker out here riding these rollers, even though they're not super long. They really challenge you. You're not going to cover a lot of distance that you would do on the flats, but I prefer getting a harder workout, because when I ride in a flat Grand Fondo or something, I fly. And I believe that something about hills just gets you there quicker. It just makes you stronger. There's something about, like, it reformats the muscle, it wakes everything up, it it hits the muscles in different ways than riding on the flats all the time. You still want to work on high cadence riding because on the flats, that's what you need. You need to have snap. So you want to make sure that you work on that. And that's what I do on the downhill.
Look at that.
So you can see from my position on my bike, my back is at a 45-degree angle. That's what you want to strive for generally. However you washed away that road over there, that's what we're talking about. They're building a freeway, a tollway out here anyway, so they're going to tear that up and make a shoulder. We're going straight across. There's a college there called Lone Star College. We're going to take the back way into the park. And I decided to show you guys the little shortcut where we go a little bit off-road and sneak through some little gate to get into the park. It's just the most efficient way, and it's quiet. And we do it because right after we take that shortcut, there's a serious little climb that I like before you get into the park to do the climbs. So this is Lone Star College. It's I think it's a private school. We have a bunch of campuses throughout the Houston area. So we cut through this college campus. Sometimes that gate's closed on the weekend, but it was open today. And when it's closed, we just go ahead and get over the sidewalk because it's one of those barriers for automobile traffic that they put up. We can get around it. This driver here is going right, so I just rolled through. But we cut through here because this is right behind the park. And this approach allows us to take advantage of a couple of extra climbs. And I asked Paul if he's going to be able to handle that little shortcut with the camera.
I respond to those who need responses. Rest of them, c'est la vie, as the French say. That's life.
That's it. C'est la vie.
You ever get through that with that camera?
Yeah, we'll get through. I'll get through. That's the part we're gonna film.
So this is our little shortcut here. It's a little trail. I don't unclip, I just go through. From my mountain biking days, this is nothing compared to what I used to ride through.
Yeah.
You can see how narrow that little entrance is right there. It's really for walking. It's a walking trail. The back of some neighborhood. So I pick up a leaf in the wheel. It's making noise. I stop to make sure I check what it was.
Really?
Yeah, the leaf.
The leaf fell off. I wanted to make sure because you don't want to pick up anything that will stay between your tire and your brakes that can jam it when you're moving. That's why I stopped.
Yeah.
So we come through here because this immediately puts us at the top of that hill. There is a left turn and we hit grade. Now you can see right here before we even get there, it says 1%. I think we get up to like a 5% plus grade.
Yeah.
And I love coming back here. So when I have time during the week, I sneak out and I ride out here and I do repeats on these things. So when I lived in Austin, I used to have to do repeats because early on, I didn't know how to climb that well, and that was a weakness. I had to work on that. So even though it says 0, this is like 0.7. There's no 0 out here. We're in the hills here. We're in Tomball, Texas. I'm gonna say it with a draw. Tomball, Texas.
Yeah.
It's a small town. It's real cool, it's quiet. I like coming out here. I wish he would. Yeah, you see the hill in the distance there. Yeah, that's a good shot of it. That's what we're headed towards before we get into the park, where the park has a bunch of rollers. So we basically ride out here to do these climbs. This is a climb for the hard men. Right here it says 2%, 3%. And I'm just using power here. I'm sitting down. I'm not downshifting. Whatever gear I'm in, I'm muscling it. You can see my cadence. I'm making sure it stays up above 75. That's my goal. 4%, and that means it's more than 4%. This overlay does not represent everything that we see on the head unit. If you watch my form, even though it's hard, my form stays the same. And that's what you have to do. You have to teach your muscles to pedal the right way. You don't want to pedal the wrong way. So we're still climbing. It says 1%. It's a little more than that. It's still digging. And I'm just going through. My cadence is up now because it's a little easier. So my cadence is faster. But you can see my heart rate went up quite a bit. I'm at the top of zone 3. I ride frequently enough. I've been riding long enough to where it takes a lot of work to get me to where I'm in zone 4. When I'm in zone 4, it's on. All those long, steady rides that make your body efficient. So here we enter the park. This is Spring Creek Park. There's a 4-way stop sign here. We just check. Nobody's coming. We roll. There's a guy in a truck up here just riding the brakes, and he must be doing maybe 7 miles an hour, if that. So I'm trying to figure out what he's doing, because all he's doing is braking. So I'll go around him. I mean, he's moving. I can walk faster than that. So we go around him, take this climb. This is a climb where it has a little turn. You could probably treat it like a pitch or a switchback in a way. I always take it a little outside the apex because it's shallower. If you go close to the grass, the grade is a little more. That's just the way it is. So I always take a wider turn. So we come in this park, we do a loop. I used to come and do multiple loops in this park when I moved back to Houston years ago. And I would just come and do maybe 3 or 4 loops and go home. It would be like a 2-hour ride. I'd ride to the park, do 4 loops, go home, and have a good workout. It really strengthens you. And the key is that on this part that's kind of flat to downhill, you keep the pressure on so that you keep your body under stress. There's a lot of kids in the park today. They're doing something. There's always something going on in this park. They have like mountain bike races. They've got 10K, 5K races. Depending on when you come, sometimes we can't really ride the park because it's just so crowded. And there's people everywhere that close the roads, and then we don't even bother riding. You can see the kids on the left here. I don't know what they're doing. Almost like they're on some kind of a scavenger hunt or something like that. They're just walking around. There's people just, walking around. It's a beautiful morning. People out enjoying the morning. So the good thing is they're not on the road, so nobody's blocking the road. We can head out. Well, I was hoping to get a good film with in here going up one of the steepest parts, but Paul had a technical issue. We go over a speed bump. Here I stayed to the left because there are ripples in the road, in the lane, that if you ride the lane, it just bumps you around. So I stay on the yellow line to avoid them. You can't really see them, but you feel them. And then right here, there's a speed bump at the base of this downhill. I don't know why they put it there, but I'm sure traffic control. But I usually ride the dirt here. Paul decides to take the speed bump at speed. I'm not sure why. Then the camera went haywire. So now he can't see anything. We see his handlebars. At that point, I'm gone. If you look at the stats, the grade says 6%, 8%. I'm gone because I'm not slowing down on that hill.
Well,
I noticed he had fallen back, but I wanted to get over that hill.
No, this twisted.
So I just powered the gear I had up the hill. My heart rate had gone down on that long downhill, and I just wanted to get over the hill because stopping on the hill is like terrible. You can't get going. So I'm up there waiting on him because I'm out of the steepest section. But he's messing with that camera on the steepest part of the hill. That makes it even harder to go. Because you got no momentum, no rhythm, no nothing. So he finally gets it sorted out.
Yeah, that bump made the camera go the other way.
So the bump basically knocked the camera out of position, and the force was so much that the gimbal could not react to that. That's the thing, it has its limits. So probably should have just taken it off the bar, or he definitely should have slowed down for that speed bump if he was going to go over it, because that's hard on your wheels too. I'm sure something was going on that made him do that. I never go over that speed bump unless I slow way down. I just go on the dirt, and that's what we do on the way back. So right here we're kind of around the little turnaround here, and this is kind of it still says 1%, but it feels more like a downhill. At this point he's working on getting the camera situated. That's the motor of the camera you're hearing. So this area right here in this section we came in, it's just a big circle. We did a loop there, and that's 6 to 8%, one of the steepest stuff around here. So here this guy's walking, I go behind him and I take the dirt. I avoid that speed bump. I hate that speed bump. I don't know why it's there. I think the limit in the park is like 10 miles an hour or something slow like that, so I don't know why they need that. It just seems to always be in the way. So right here we're going up a climb here, and we just decided to kind of go up easy. It says 3%. It's a little more than that, but you know, it's not that steep really. It's not even as steep as the one we took on that shortcut before we got to the park. But this was a climb where we used to do a lot of playing when we'd come in here with a bunch of folks in a group. There would be a lot of separation in here. So I used to come and ride this climb just to get a feel for how it worked. It continues even when you think it's not. I'm not sure what Paul's doing here, but he films the sky. He moved the camera too high up. And thankfully he brings it back down. He's still working with the camera after that bump, I guess. So I'm waiting for him here. This is near our stop. We stop at a Phillips 66 convenience store that's run by a pretty nice guy named Sean. We hadn't been going there as often as we used to, but every time we go, he just makes us feel very welcome. So I like stopping there. So we're basically just riding this climb at this point, you know, getting ready for the stop. So the intensity's down. We're staying in zone 2 and just riding the climb comfortably. So both of these guys are turning left. It's a 4-way. We turn. There is a rise going out of the park. Yeah, it says 4%. It bites. When you turn, you feel it. So that's why I used to enjoy this park. I'd come and do multiple loops in here and include the exit and go back in because the exit was tough.
Yeah.
I was telling Paul about my left leg and how I can feel it working, even though it's not my dominant leg. We're talking about fit. This is stuff we talk about when we ride. So our stop is right up here on the left. It's a Phillips 66 gas station. They kind of look forward to us coming there. They even sell bananas and stuff there. I'm not sure it's just because of us, but it's a small area. I only have large grocery stores nearby, so a lot of people come up here to get stuff, get supplies. So we park our bikes right up here. We're leaning on that little yellow metal thing you see there. We're leaning the tires on there. I don't like anything touching my bike except for the tires. The tires and the handlebars. That keeps it stable. definitely not, like nothing touched my derailleurs. So this part of the course, we're winding the ride down, coming back homeward. We're headed southeasterly, more south than east.
It's perfect.
And so the wind is everywhere. It seems to be real blustery. We expected a perfect tailwind. We're not getting it. You can hear it. So basically I'm in a good sized gear, maybe a 5317 or 5319. And just gonna treat this like we're still climbing. That's one of the perks of being in this area with the wind. You can work on strength if you know what you're doing. So I decided to just use this ride to build more muscular endurance capacity in my legs. You can see the wind. I mean, this jersey fits me like skin tight and it's still blowing. I think here Paul takes the camera. Yeah, that's the wind. I think it's blowing like crazy. So it's coming from our left. You see the flags over there on the left? Yeah, the wind's stiffer than what the flags are letting on, but it looks like the wind has shifted from west to east, so we feel it from the easterly direction right now. So it's coming from our left and in front of us. But it just seemed to be everywhere. You know, I just let the wind do what it needs to do and get on to the business of riding. So I decided to stay mostly in zone 2 to zone 3 for this stretch, because we've got a major highway, 2920, miles down the road. That is always a challenge because it's wide open. There are no trees like here. These trees block a little bit of the wind. So on that highway, there are no trees, so you don't get a respite from the wind. So you always have to ride like that. You have to think about what's coming, what's up and coming, and then you dose out your effort. So I'm not thinking about right here. I'm thinking about what's going to be coming once we get outside of Tomball's downtown area. We're west of Tomball downtown area here. So we're basically using the roads that go outside of the main downtown area because they're quieter. This is Highway 249. It's tollway. I'm glad Paul filmed this part. I always try to take off out of the saddle. It's just so much more explosive. Yeah, you use a bit more power because you're putting down a lot of watts, but you sure get a jump on that gear when you're out of the saddle with less strain because you're using the strength of your upper body as well. So I rarely take off in the saddle. And if you must take off in the saddle, make sure the gearing you're in is something you can handle while seated so that you're not crawling trying to get through an intersection. I see a lot of cyclists do that. The gear's too big and they're just crawling through the intersection. They're barely turning the pedals. So you always want to make sure you're in the appropriate gear. This is more of an industrial area here. There's a Walmart on the right there. And I'm not sure what store is on the left. So right now what I do is I make sure I keep my eye on those driveways for the cars that are leaving the shopping center. A lot of people leaving shopping centers are kind of preoccupied sometimes. So I keep my eye on the front left tire there, because if it starts to move, that's the first thing you're going to see. So that's what I pay attention to. All these little driveways, that's where my attention is on. Make sure nobody's sneaking out in front of you. Anything that can block your path is what you want to focus on when you're riding or even driving your car. That's what matters. That's where the hazard is. The people that are too far away from you to impede your progress, don't worry about them. So with the wind coming from our left and in our face, I decide I'm going to treat it like I always do, as resistance. And I kind of treat the wind as an aid to my training all the time. The stiffer the wind, that's the mindset I get. How can I use the wind to improve? And so what I'm doing here is building a rhythm, as if to say I'm climbing a mountain pass. So I keep my cadence 70 plus, mostly 75 plus, and get into a rhythm. I get into drops here, but I'm going to show later on that highway that the drops are not necessarily the most efficient position on the bike. The reason I say that is that if you look at my arms, when you're in the drops, your arms are at maybe, I'm guessing, 65 to 70 degrees maybe angle. And having your arms at 90 degrees when you're on the hoods, parallel to the ground, is more efficient. And literally on this ride, I hope I can show confirmation, because that's something that I know for a fact. And you can feel yourself going faster, not in that position on the hoods, but when you bend your arms and keep them parallel to the ground, the wind slices around your arms better. That's what I meant. So yeah, the drops are a powerful position, but it's not the most aerodynamic. The drops give you more control than when you're up there. But when you're cruising, it's better to be on the hoods with your arms parallel. Plus, it's a little more comfortable anyway. So it's a win-win. So after the turn, I get the gear rolling here again. Settle down. Now we're going, I think we're going north. The course says east. Yeah, there we go. It's moving now. Yeah, we're going north. It said 360. 360 or 0, you're going north. And that wind is directly in our face here, because I'm using the same amount of power and the speed's less. 30 kilometers, about 18 miles an hour. That was a four-way stop sign. Nothing was coming. We rolled through. Now the wind is coming from our left. We're headed kind of east. Yeah, you can see the course on the display there moving. We're headed northeast. Now it's going back north. It's more east than north. It's spinning around trying to get oriented. We're headed east. There. So it's close to 90, which indicates east. We're headed mostly east, kind of northeasterly, slightly north but more east. So the wind's kind of on our left, a little in our face. And I'm keeping the effort the same and just focusing on strength. So my legs are working. And so this is a different kind of training, instead of going to the gym, this is the kind of training you can do. Upper climb or into the wind, use a heavy gear, stay smooth, and build those muscle fibers, get the strength in them. And then you can change your training later on and incorporate the strength you build into faster cadences. So it's a combination of varying training. You got to be able to do all of it to be a complete cyclist. So I started the ride, if you remember, spinning up those climbs, then climbing out of the saddle, now riding the flat portions of this ride into the wind at a steady cadence, almost like the same kind of cadence you'd use climbing. And then shortly after this, once we get on the main highway, I'll pick it up, increase my cadence, but still maintain a cruising speed. You've got to be able to do all of that. That's what I mean when I say on Saturday we'll put everything together. Those are the things you work on during the week. And you put it together in your group rides, your grand fundals, your races, and so forth. So we turn north here. And the course is keeping up. The display is keeping up finally. It says 359. We're pretty much heading directly north. Whenever I turn, I kind of back off the power slightly, because I know Paul's out back there with that camera. Let him settle in, and then I resume what I was doing before. And even in a group, every time you go around a turn, there's going to be slight gaps. So you don't want to go, unless you're attacking or something. If you're just pulling the group, when you go around a turn, soft pedal a few strokes. Let everybody kind of settle back in, and then you resume. That keeps the group smooth. So if you look now, my heart rate's going up because we're going into the wind, and I'm trying to maintain the same effort. So what happens is the body will adapt to basically pump more blood if it needs to, so the heart rate speeds up because your heart's doing more work, so that you can continue the effort that you're putting out. And that's the reason why you can't just depend on heart rate as a gauge for effort, because it's reacting to the work you're doing. It's not a pure indicator of the effort you're putting out. So right here I'm in the drop. You can see because of my fit, I am pretty aero there. This is not my most aero position, as I was mentioning before. But I'm on here because this road got a lot of little bumps, and it's a nice change. I can rest on the lower part of the bar. I'm not in the hooks. I'm just on the lower end of the bars. And then here I lie down on the top a little bit. The wind here is there, but it's not too vicious. I don't stay here too long because this road's kind of bumpy. But that is a very comfortable position, except for the elbow area, because your forearms, your forearms don't really have pads. So it's not the most comfortable. This is the most aero position right here, where you're on the hoods and your arms are parallel. That is more aero than even the drops. And it's more comfortable than even the drops. And you use this when you're cruising for the most part. If you're in traffic or around a lot of riders, there's a lot of curves and different things going on, a lot of action, you get in the drops. You have the most control there. So right here, we're going directly into the wind. So I lowered my torso and I'm on the hoods. And I can stay there forever. In any other position, I can stay in the drops forever. When your bars are set up correctly and your saddle set up correctly, you should be able to do all of that without moving, because your hips roll when you're on the saddle, in the saddle, I should say, to accommodate the changes in position. So I checked, there's no car coming. This road really goes nowhere on the left there. It's a three-way. We're coming to 2920, FM 2920, a major highway here that takes you from Tomball into the main part of Spring. We're still on the outskirts of Tomball here. We just went around the city, the main drag. So I stay on the shoulder here. It's a good sized shoulder. I'm making sure Paul is in position. So the wind now is on our left because it's still blowing from the north and in our face somewhat. This highway is one of my favorite highways because, first of all, it's always challenging. It's not particularly flat per se the whole way. It looks flat, but it's not. It has slight rolls, but the wind is always out here because it is completely exposed. We got this large building here. It's like the Baker Hughes plant and so forth. Once we get through the light up ahead, there's nothing but farmland. That's the way it's always been. Even with the trees on the left, they don't do much to block the wind. You've got the wind here all year. Very deceiving highway, and it's at the end of our ride. You can see we're almost 3.5 hours into this ride. So usually, if you have not saved anything, you crawl home on this highway. This highway can pound you. So if you haven't been drinking, you haven't been eating, and you don't have the endurance, you crawl home. So Paul and I both love this highway. It's a challenge. And you can see what I'm talking about. Look to the right. There's nothing there. Usually they have cows in the pasture eating the grass. On the left, they got these little trees. They cut down the bigger trees and put those little, what I call shrubs. In 50 years, they might become trees. But that's all you've got. This road is wide open. It's the open plains. It went from -0 to 0, which is really nothing. That wind is whipping up here. It's everywhere. It's a lot louder than you hear, but thanks to the wind reduction capabilities in the software I use for post-production, it's lowered that because it's not fun to listen to. It's just wind. So whenever I come in this situation again, it's kind of like you can see my heart rate now 161 at the top of zone 3. Speed's picking up a little bit. It says -0 here. It's a slight favorable down. It doesn't last very long. Yeah, it goes back to 0. That's the thing about this road. Very tricky. The surface is rough because what they did was they put little bitty rocks down and then they put asphalt down. So it's not smooth, super smooth, but it's not rough to the point where it's gonna hurt your tires or anything. But this is not buttery smooth asphalt. So you gotta work to keep the bike moving. That's what I like about it. And then you have the wind here all the time. So you can see I'm putting out the same amount of effort. Now my heart rate's creeping up because we have more wind, rough surface, and you know, it's just great. You can really finish up your workout nicely here. So we continue to roll, and you can see now my speed is picking up. There's something about this road that once I get on it, if I'm feeling good, I get a slice of adrenaline. There's a lot of debris on the road. Somebody dropped concrete down there, and it just hardened one of those concrete trucks, and it's just in the way. You don't want to go over it. It feels like a small speed bump. So now you can see I'm at 36 kilometers an hour. I'm now in zone 4. So for the first time this ride, I'm at the base, the beginning of zone 4. This is where what I call sweet spot training. And I'm feeling pretty good. I got a nice rhythm going. And because the wind is coming from the left, I'm hugging the white line. And if you can tell from the camera angle, Paul has now gotten closer and he's on the right. So he's in the echelon because the pace has picked up. We're now going hard. So I'm in the drops here and just You know, basically, I don't get up any higher than this in these kind of conditions. This is what I talked about in one of the other group rides where I said when it's necessary. Now, look, I got on the hoods. My arms are horizontal. Now, I want you to pay attention to my speed. I'm at 168 beats per minute. My speed is 36 kilometers an hour. I'm now on the hoods. I want you to watch my speed go up. See right there, 37. Heart rate went up maybe 1 beat. It's gonna stay between 36 to maybe 39 kilometers an hour. That's what I saw most of the time. There we go, hit 38. I'm on the brake hoods and my arms are parallel. And now look, my heart rate is right at 169, which is where it stayed. And my speed went up. Now it says 170. So my body's working harder. The wind may have gusted here, who knows? But that's the thing with it. It changes all the time. But it doesn't really matter. Like it says 171, 172. What you want to gauge it by is a range. Within 5 beats or so, that's a range. So from 169 to 174, I would consider a range for these speeds in this condition. Now it's gone back down to 171. That's the same thing with if I had a power meter. They jump all over the place. So when I used to use it, I just averaged it. I displayed the average for like 3 seconds or something like that. That's how you want to do it. So you can't be focused on just the numbers. So now you can see my heart rate's going down, but my speed is the same. That's what's weird about the body. So now it says the grade is -0. I mean, it's flat. It's basically flat. I don't pay attention to that. It's a flat road here. There's a light coming up there where it goes uphill. But I want you to focus more on my effort. So I keep the effort the same. I'm not looking at my heart rate when I ride. Just by feel. I know when I'm going harder. That's why you use a range. You know when you've tapped it into the next range. And I'm keeping the effort the same, but I'm staying error on the hoods because the wind is out here blowing viciously. And that has kept the speeds 36 or more. Like right now it's down to 36. It got up as high as 38 thereabouts. Now it's 35 because we're going, this is a grade right here. It hasn't registered because it may not be 1% yet, but it's a grade. That's Dowdell Road we just went through, and it goes up. And all I'm doing is making sure I am on top of whatever gear I'm in. I'm not doing a whole lot of shifting. I'm probably in a 53-17 or 53-16 just to stay steady. Now you see it's back up to 37. This is a slight grade here too until we get through this light. Now it says 38. Heart rate 172. So the heart rate went from 169 to 172. That's like 3 beats. That's why you don't worry about it. Just get a feel. So 38 kilometers an hour. I'm just doing the same thing I've been doing. The speed's changing based on what that wind does and what the road does. Some guys parked on the side of the road here, so I skirt the white line. Now it says 39 kilometers an hour. And it's still flat, but I think the wind may have died down slightly because I'm not really pushing much harder. You see my heart rate went to 173 and I dropped to 172. So I went harder than on the back road there, but not harder than I've been doing on here. So now we're slowing down. You can see my heart rate dropping quickly. All I did was basically stop pedaling. Look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that. Almost 10 beats in there. That's what happens when you're fit. When you ride consistently and you know how to train, that's what happens. So when you're riding and somebody gives you a break or you're in a breakaway and you pull off the front, as soon as you soft pedal, your heart rate starts dropping because your body is efficient. That's the point I'm making. We stopped here for this lap. I'm going to let it run full so you can see my heart rate's in the 150s and I'm breathing deeply. I'm not panting. Get oxygen in there. That's what happens. So you get behind somebody's wheel for a few strokes, you recover real quickly. You can see it's now at 150. That's 23 beats. I'm in the 140s. So I've gone 2 zones in the time that we sat here at this light. I do that to just try to stress to you guys that consistent training is important. If you want to be a good rider, you got to ride often. You can't do it once in a while. You ride often and know how to train, have a program, know how you stress those zones. I wasn't worried about being in the 170s because during the week, on Tuesday, I live in the 170s. It's a shorter ride, but it's intense. So you got to have workouts when you get in those zones so you get acclimated. So when the numbers show up, you don't worry about it. I know I can spend time in zone 4 or zone 5. So I don't worry about it. So now we'll resume over here. And I think I asked Paul whether we should keep filming. He said something about, yeah, the ride's almost over. Why not? Let's just finish it out. Something like that. So Paul's leading here. And he's taking us into the wind. So I welcome the break. Not sure what we're talking about there, but I went ahead and just rolled through. Needless to say, the wind has not abated, and so I get up to the front and resume the same style of effort. There's a lot of rough surfaces over here, so we use the lane. I look behind, of course. And you guys can see when I look behind, it's not a big deal. I just move my head and I see fine. It's an instant. My line doesn't change. So I edited it a little bit to get us to this intersection. We're just kind of riding. And we're turning right here. So now we've got kind of a slight tailwind, but it's still a little blustery. It was never perfect today. We're headed kind of southeasterly. We still got the wind. You can hear it. It's just everywhere. It was one of those days that never got very uncomfortable during the ride. We're in the mid-70s for most of the ride. I don't think we got near 90. 28C is in the 80s. It was a very pleasant day, fair day. Well, a lot of wind because of the front that came through on Thursday. You can hear that thing whistling even with the modification of the audio. We dealt with that all day. That's one thing we have a lot of down here is wind. We may not have the long climbs, but yeah, because of the wind, when I go places that have long climbs, I don't have any problems. I can hold my own. It was almost 4 hours into this ride. It's 3.25 hours. So the thing I want to stress is, yeah, we'll do a ride like this. Yeah, we're not setting any speed records or anything. But riding for 4 hours is riding for 4 hours. If you know what you're doing, because we don't just ride, we train. So the key is that your body's ready. If we were to go somewhere and someone wanted to go faster, we'd be ready. It wouldn't be a problem physically or psychologically because we know we can do more. And that's why I try to tell people, you don't need to go out there all the time and try to set your best times or whatever, personal records. Just be consistent, because that kind of conditioning that you put down When it's time to ramp it up, not only will you physically be ready, psychologically you'll be excited and eager, because you don't do that every day. And that's important. I was taught that a long time ago, and that's the kind of training from time immemorial where the professionals would, in Europe, of course, would do long 5-6 hour rides. And people got it mistaken and called them long, slow distance. No, it's long, steady distance. I mean, finally, people have caught on and revised it. You don't need to necessarily go slow per se, just steady. You condition yourself and then you ramp it up. So in this one ride, we've hit most of the critical zones. And that's what matters. So the body's ready and it's flexible. That's why I like in the group, anything goes. Somebody wants to go faster, you sit on their wheel, let them pull. It's their idea. You'll still be in the same lower zones if you can draft properly, but you'll be working in different cadences per se if you want to react. That's what I like about group rides and keeping it free and clear. At this point I sit up. We're pretty much almost home.
Oh yeah.
Good job, man. Good job. Ride's pretty much over. Just dropped off Paul. Got another epic ride under the belt. It's very windy today. It's a north breeze, keeping temperatures down in the area. So, hope you guys got a chance to get out there. Go ahead and finish this ride.